Welcome to episode 8 of the Open Source Podcast. Today, we've got Kalyani Pawar, who is an incredible AppSec engineer currently with Zipline and has a background in her own career for podcasting. She's an absolute legend, a professional yapper, and I'm so pleased to have her on. Kalyani, it's awesome to have you on, and I'm excited to kick things off with a brief kind of overview of your career today and experience, currently obviously working in AppSec and what your growing impact you're seeing in the security space. So I'll throw things over to you, and keen to hear about your experience today.
Thanks for having me, Bruce. I'm a certified yapper, so I'm glad you called me on the show to talk about me and my career. Favorite thing to do. My name is Kalyani. I also go by Kaylee. My entire career has been in AppSec at this point, but I started off on offensive security at Intuit, and I learned a bunch of bad things that can happen in fintech. And then from there on, I realized I have a knack for securing things, and I realized that I don't have fun in big organizations, and so I should make the switch to startups where I'd have more ownership. And a few startups later, now I'm at Zipline, where I handle the application security side of things. And Zipline is a unicorn. It's a drone company based out of South San Francisco. And it's a cool place to work at. Um, that's about me. Outside of Zipline, I write content 6 days a week. I also am a co-host on the podcast called Application Security Weekly, where we nerd out about all things AppSec, and we interview really interesting people who have controversial opinions on AppSec, and we cover all the news that happens on a weekly basis. So that's long and short about what I do.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Hey, wouldn't we all like to go and play and build and secure drones that are doing such good around the world? That'd be so much fun. I'm sure. Well, one of the things and I've been so excited to have you on the podcast because you are so open and transparent about your career and some of the challenges that I think we all face in our careers. So you've mentioned in the past, and we've spoken about this a little bit, about how you felt imposter syndrome at times, or you're a completely different security engineer to what you were 3 years ago. And I would love to kind of dig into it a little bit, like what's changed most for you since starting out. And you've said, that you have a different security mindset now than before. I would love to dig into that a little bit as well.
There's definitely been a character arc along the way that I'd like to touch on. Sure. So, imposter syndrome is basically, if I had to explain it to my younger self, would be you are putting in the work, but you feel like a fraud all the time because you feel like everybody else around you knows so much and you just don't know enough, right? The only solution that has worked out for me is that go out, learn things. Make as many mistakes as you can early on, so you learn off of it and the imposter syndrome goes away. Something else that was comforting enough to learn is no matter how much experienced a person was in their career, everybody faces imposter syndrome. We're all dealing with the same problem, and I'm pretty sure we're all winging it too as it comes. And I think there's another aspect to this is when you start doing things, you figure out where it's not going to work versus where it's going to work. And there is certain confidence that comes from doing things rather than just like reading about it or stressing about it, right? The only I think, you get stressed when there is no movement, when there's no progress. So instead, when you start doing things, you see that you are moving in a certain direction. It could be wrong, it could be right, but you will only know if you start experimenting. And that I learned it pretty early on. Thankfully I was in environments where it was easier to make mistakes and learn from it. And there was always this blanket of failure, which makes it easier to make mistakes, right? That helped me learn somewhere along the way, and it helped me deal with imposter syndrome. One more facet about imposter syndrome is when you're in a room full of people who don't look quite like you. It frustrates me that even in 2025, when I look at a bunch of conference speaker lists or across even like a dinner table conversation, I'm the only woman out there, and that really hits hard, because I feel like lots of women are technical enough and capable enough of answering all those questions and making meaningful contributions to all those conversations. It's just that we have been such a minority all along that, when you don't see people looking quite like you, it somehow, throws a brick at that wall of confidence that you have built, because you start questioning, do I belong here? Can I do this? You very much belong here, and you can do this. You just have to go out there, put yourself out there, and see the magic you create. That is what I'd leave the listeners with.
No, definitely. And I think it's you're totally right in terms of like you can look around a room, especially at conferences, and feel, hey, I don't fit. I think one of the things that I love to see, and we were just all together at B sides this year, was some of the networking and support groups, like your WISA Silicon Valley chapters, Hack the Bay, etc., having a presence now within B sides. And I know that's been the case for a while, but it's great to see. And I know that you've been involved with WISIS in the past. How have those types of organizations and getting involved and throwing yourself into that type of community helped you navigate some of these challenges?
Some of the conferences, like say PSIs, they're very diversity inclusive. There are many other conferences which will do blind reviews, meaning you don't know who's submitting the paper, who's submitting the talk. It could be anyone on the planet, and you are chosen purely on the basis of merit, right? That that builds confidence, right? When you submit something, they don't know about you, but they like your work, and you are validated in that cycle, feeling okay, my work seems acceptable enough to be presented in front of 50 other people, so there must be, some substance to the work that I'm working on, right? And then organizations like VSIS or Cyversity, what I like about them, or even Anita Borg, that organization which runs the Grace Hoppers conference, they have the mentorship programs. I think those are really invaluable, right? I would like to think about mentorship in such a way that there is a lot that you can learn from your mentee as well. At any given time, and I learned this from one of the VSIS events I attended. One of the speakers on the panel said that at any given time you should have your own board of advisors who you go and talk to and seek advice from on different facets of your life. It could be your friends, it could be people you met in your career, it could just be a whole list of people who you know exactly to ask the right questions to. Um, and I tell you, I have met so many amazing people in the community, that even if we catch up maybe once or twice a year, it's always a meaningful conversation. And if ever I need anything, I know they're just a phone call away. Like, I will not shy away from asking for help or even helping them if they need me at all. And so community is such a underrated term. But you like, I think when I was in college, I never understood what community is. Like, I used to always think that my work will take me places, but as you grow up, you realize that your work is not enough, but also like the people you know and the people you're rooting for and the people who are rooting for you. All of that does play a certain role.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that the community piece is so huge now, and I think a community needs champions. It needs people that are learning, and then people graduate through a community, if you will. As weird as that sounds, but like they graduate through a community to become the champions themselves, and then bring in and you learn so much from each other. And I think it's super important that we continue to foster that. And I think someone like yourself who is putting yourself out there, putting everything on the line, and it's giving so many people confidence to grow and to go and challenge in the workplace, or to put their hand up during a meeting and give ideas, etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where you grow. That's where you grow, is when you are getting.
My Yeah, it might feel uncomfortable to stay in the room, but stay for a little longer and make sure that you will have a chair at the table. Like, I think that's something I learned too. Like, stay long enough, learn things, pick things up, and then put yourself out there loudly, show up loudly. That helps. Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And have there been people that have played a really outside of like communities? There have been people that played really pivotal role in your career thus far that have helped you navigate challenges at certain points or taken that next step. I mean, you I think you're a lone ranger at the moment in security at Zipline, which is incredible to see.
Um, People, okay, so outside of community, I think networking within the company is something that people don't often talk about. If when we were at like a bigger organization, it's easier to like talk to so many people who work in different organizations. Like itself, security itself is like easily 200 people organization. In like the big FANG kind of companies, I'm really throwing a small number when I'm saying that. Um, and there's so many people that you can talk to out there and brainstorm with and learn new perspective. Sometimes you even end up forming good friendships. I feel like at some of the jobs that I've been at, I've really gotten good friends. Or even like going as far back to like school. When I graduated from Johns Hopkins, maybe like, I don't know, 7 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, um, people who went to the school after me ended up DMing me on LinkedIn, like cold DMs, and I just responded, and today we're like best friends. Yeah, it's and you like like the how people think that, oh, maybe they're too junior than my title, and maybe I have nothing to gain from the conversation. I think that's a very wrong way to the wrong mindset to have a conversation with anyone, because like you can be a know-it-all. Come on, you can't be a know-it-all, and everybody has their own unique magic to their opinion, their own unique flavor to offer. So yeah, I so many of my ex-managers I still talk to till this day, or I ask advice from, or just internal networking, or even LinkedIn DMs. It's surprising. I used to always have this negative perception that if I reach out to people, nobody's going to help. To my surprise, people do respond. They do respond, and it's a small community. We're not as big as like all the software engineers out there. Security is still a small community.
Yeah, no, there's a fantastic community in security, and it's one that I'm very proud to play a very small part in, but one that I think everybody enjoys being a part of. You mentioned there going back to even high school and your time with Johns Hopkins. What what was the spark for you to go? Cybersecurity is for me. Just rewinding a little there.
Um, okay. So some background. My father is an electrical engineer. So when I was growing up, maybe like I was 14 or 15, I was literally growing up around a lot of tech books. Like I remember we had this big fat let us C book, which was all about like how do you program in C and things like that. And my father really wanted me to be a software engineer, but I really liked math. And so we had like our own conflicts at that time. Anyway, he wanted me to be a programmer. I swear to God, he has tried so hard for me to gobble up all the tech books and then learn how to write good programs. I swear. Um, I figured out that this does not interest me at all. Like I don't want to write code day in day out. I was about 16 when I had that clarity. Um, but I liked I always had that breaker mindset. I remember when I was 16, and I think we had like these local pages on the internet, right, that you could just download and then you could modify the copy. This was like very much old. I think this was the Netscape browser era, I guess. And then I was able to modify a few copies, and every time I used to load the copy, it used to say like say it was google.com, okay, and then I modified the web page to say Kalyani is here, and every time I used to load the web page, it used to show Kalyani is here, and I used to be like, did I hack Google or what? And so I was stressed. I mean, I was so stressed for 3 days. I used to be like, anybody used to knock our door, I used to be like, FBI is here. FBI is here to take me because Kalyani maybe hacked into Google. And then day three, I gave up. I was like, okay, I have to tell my dad. Like, I committed a crime. and we need to hire a lawyer before they put me in or something. I have watched all kinds of American movies at the time. Um, and my dad was like, "There's no way in hell you hacked into Google. Let me give you the reality check." And then we figured out what I did, and then he realized that she does have a different skill, which is trying to see obviously how things work, and maybe trying to see how to like make them not work the way they're intended to work. And that's where he was like, yeah, like you should experiment more with the other things out there. And he obviously did want me to be a coder at that point. Like till this day I am good at scripting, and I swear to god I don't think I would do well on lead code at all. Like the lead code interviews, I did not do well on them. I think, and then I figured out like this is called manual source code review. I did not know this was called manual source code review. I was literally doing manual source code review even before I got paid to do it. um and so yeah, that's how it all started. Just it's such a funny story as like, yeah.
I love that. That's very cool, and what a way to find your way in. And it shows the influence family and has on you as a career, and
Yeah,
that's very cool. Obviously, your father was a big influence for you.
it was obviously like very big influence. And I also feel like my parents were very liberal. They never said that because you are a girl so you cannot do this. I think when you have that thinking in the household itself, it makes you feel confident and resilient enough to take rejections outside, because you know you have someone supporting or rooting for you back home. So that gender bias did not exist even in my household at that time. So yeah, I think that plays such a huge role. Like you said, like family plays a very big role. And yeah, yeah, it was not regressive. My upbringing was not regressive. Like even to this date, I feel like my parents will reject some of my out of the box ideas, and I'm surprised they accepted well. So
I love that. That's very cool. Just those arguments around the dinner table, or argument debates around the dinner table. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely good stuff. Well, you you have your day job and then your other day job of producing content, and you post a lot of very rich advice online for people who are entering cybersecurity or developing through their career, on whether that's submitting abstracts or handling internships, securing early stage startup jobs. I'd love to kind of service some of that guidance again. And you've I think you shared recently like a step-by-step guide on writing talks and abstracts, and some of the things you focus what are some of the things you focus on when writing a talk, like whether depending obviously regardless of subject matter, but like what's some of the things that you would kind of highlight.
thumb for anyone who wants to write a talk or aspires to write a talk ever is, if you can nerd out on the concept for 30 minutes straight, go write a talk about it. If you think, second rule of thumb, if nobody's talking about it, you go talk about it, right? You present your perspective, and I'm sure there's like five people in the world who would be interested to listen to you, right? It's all about interest. If you know a topic very well, you are going to find a way to talk about it, like if for whatever the amount of time is. The harder part is to submit an abstract that is good enough, catchy enough for the reviewers to accept. That is the hard part. That is a learned skill. It will only come after you face enough rejection. After I remember myself excuse me, that the first year when I was submitting talks, I had only one acceptance and maybe like 12 rejections. No, I had 12 rejections the first year, and then my first acceptance came the year after, and that straight off came from AppSec Village at DEF CON. So yeah, it's amazing how things work out. I would have given up. Hey, 12 is not a small number. It's a double digit failure. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this one more year. And if I cannot make it, maybe this is just like not my game to play, and I should try, something else. Maybe just like write on LinkedIn and LinkedIn is not that hard to get validation from. There's obviously one or two people who are going to hit like on your content, but for a talk for audience to show, that's a different scale of acceptance, right? um and my talk at DEF CON, the room was full. I remember the room was full. There was not one single empty seat because the topic was interesting enough. Not a lot of people were talking about Copilot going wrong or Chat GPT throwing the most insecure slop of code out there. Nobody was talking about it at that time, but I was. So, and I had done enough research, enough playing around with AI at that time that I could go talk about it. So and this is, I think, back in 22 or 23, which is when it was just very new. A lot of people weren't even using Chat GPT to write essays at that time. I was already dabbling in code. Like I was like, okay, I have a few skills and I'm going to use this bot to make sure it's working the way I expect it to work. And so yeah, it was a raging success. So yeah, don't be afraid of rejections. It was easy to give up, but I think the longer you stay, there has to be acceptance somewhere. Yeah, there's a very famous reel I saw once where Jack Ma is saying that most people work today evening is going to be hard, tomorrow evening is going to be harder, and you're going to give up tomorrow evening, but the victory lies day after tomorrow. I think that's kind of true.
I think it definitely is. It is. And perseverance is a quality that I think is, something that everybody underrated, and you just got to keep. Sometimes you chip away and you compound up these small incremental wins, and then that brings your success about. I have that as a recruitment business owner. There's days when I'm just like, nothing's gone right. The next day nothing goes right, and you're just like, what is going on? And then all of a sudden you have these days where two people reach out of the blue that you haven't been even thinking about. They're looking to hire, or a candidate has reached out. Just those. It's an overnight success that took 3 years. Do you know what I mean? That type of thing. That happens a lot. So no, I totally agree with you. And I think you have to have a certain level of passion, right, in terms of in what you're doing, to go and do the research and figure it out. But you've mentioned before that passion isn't always enough, is it? And how did that change your career thinking?
Passion is not always enough. That is true. I feel like passion is such a heavy word. um some people view it in a very negative light. I personally don't think passion is to be viewed in a negative light. I think more than passion, are you content with what you're doing? I see a lot of people working in tech, and it's mostly because of money, and they're really looking for the clock to tick five so they can take the day off. You are, if you are spending one third of your life doing something, you should feel content about it, right? Like they say, right? If you sleep for one third of your life, make sure you have a comfortable mattress to sleep on, right? I think it's the same way about work. If you're going to put 8 hours of your everyday life trying to work, um, I hope you find meaning in it, because otherwise, it's not. I at least prefer to think that way, that it's not helping me mentally be happy or anything. Um, the other thing is um, your goals, like how motivated are you to get them? um and for example, one of the goals this year I had was, or not even this year, I thought like anytime before I turn 30 I want to go speak at RSA. That's a goal I had. uh, and for real, I thought for a very long time that I was not prepared for it, but it's just one of those things of putting yourself out there and like letting the board decide if they want to accept you or not, right? And I spoke at RSA this year, which was I was motivated enough to like try enough number of times, and after I hit submit, I actually forgot that I hit submit.
Anyway, so well, mission accomplished. And I think, yeah, that's actually a really good point. It's something that I haven't really touched on with many guests on the show. Is how do you attack goal setting from a career standpoint? Obviously you have some that aren't tied to your day to day. You have some that are very much holistic. How do you tackle goal setting when kind of thinking about your career on a year by year basis?
So um I will, maybe I have a little bit of philosophical take here. um I think somewhere in my mid 20s, I had a few life experiences at the time where everything in my personal life and professional life was just like whack. And I was I was not at all like, there was all this chaos and unrest in my life at that time. Um, and I read a lot of poetry. So some of the poetry, one poetry that I read at that time was said that you are all your questions and you are the prophet who is going to answer all those questions. The answers that you're seeking in shrines and temples, you like all that chaos, you are the chaos and you are the transcending power to the chaos. So anything that you're looking for, be it God, meaning, purpose, all of that lies inside of you. It's not outside of you, right? So whatever you are seeking, that if that means something to you, if, for example, to some of my friends, it was like, we don't want to make the rich person richer and want to have like meaningful impact, and so they took up projects which had more social impact, right? So those, understand what who you are, all the answers that you need are within you. Understand yourself better, be comfortable with the chaos, because that's towards the end of it is when you're going to get all the answers you want. And once you get that clarity, goal setting becomes so easy because you know exactly what you want and you are willing to make the plan to get to it. um Again, do not make the mistake of working on 10 different things at the same time. You are not AI, you are a human. I have made that mistake. It burnt me out massively because I was not doing anything well and I was failing on all verticals. um I would not recommend that to anyone. Rather just pick like three top priority things for you and then work on it. um and consistency is so important. Like it's so underrated. And I have seen it in my own growth. Like the times when I'm not consistent with content, I will not gain organic following at all. Nobody will be interested in talking to me or asking about my opinions, and that's obvious because I'm not putting in consistent efforts on it. um, when I'm consistent again, when I start posting 6 days a week, is when I have a bunch of DMs asking me to be an advisor on their startup, or asking me for solutions to a problem that they're working on, or even career advice. And it's consistency. It's underrated. The more you consistently work on it, the better it is. Often we don't talk about regression. For example, say if you're working out and you're consistent for the first 3 months, and then say you're like, okay, goal achieved. I lost whatever 10 pounds I had to lose, goal achieved. So now I'm going to sit at home and I'm going to eat whatever I want to eat. That's regression right there because you're going to gain some more weight. And then again, you're going to be like, damn, why did I do what I do? Like regression hurts massively because you achieved your goal and then you regress. So now you're not at your goal anymore. So again, it's consistency, right? Just because you achieve something doesn't mean you have to just, I don't know, give up on it.
No, totally, totally. I think everything kind of circles back to that every time of like, once you start to get that consistency in approach, you start to see the wins. You start to be more consistent because you're going to do more of what's giving you success and validation. Yeah, I totally agree, and I think, but regression does happen, and at times, you have to pause throughout your career or pause throughout a project and go, right, okay, how do we hit the reset and how do we put ourselves back on the path that we want to be on? That isn't always linear, but how do we get back on the horse from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you mentioned there you've been advising startups or talking to startups about um, security and how to tackle it. What are some of the key things that you found are important to startups when it is kind of designing their security roadmap?
So, okay, designing a security roadmap at a startup. First thing I'm going to say is, okay, if you are just designing your MVP, maybe security is obviously not going to be a priority. But depending on the kind of product you're building, start thinking about security early on. For example, if you are dealing with PII and not thinking about security, since like your MVP is going to be such a big issue, you don't want to be bankrupt and paying fines just because you were lax on security. Um, so it you don't necessarily have to hire your first security hire on day one. It can happen at any time. Once you have an MVP, once you have figured out your PMF and your product market fit, and you know what kind of industry you are in. um, for example, if it's something, like I said, if it's something to deal with healthcare data, PII, don't treat security lightly. um, when you are strapped for budget, you try to leverage as many free things available to you. Threat modeling is free. People often don't know that it is called threat modeling, but we literally threat model day in, day out. Like as humans, whenever we see a dark alley, do we walk into it? No, we don't, because we see a threat and we change our path, right? So do the same thing with your product. Um, this one, like, there is no forgiveness for people who have no MFA. Maybe I'm being very brutal, but no forgiveness. Like no. So yeah, get things like your MFA in order. Like if literally your bread and butter lives in GitHub, and it, like, your admin also does not have an MFA, or anybody can just randomly write your code or steal your code, that's not a great idea. I'm not very stringent on have zero secrets in code, because that's going to be impossible, unless, I don't know, we built like most pristine workflows. But figure out what is the risk you can take, and how many resources you can allocate to mitigating a certain risk. I'm not a huge fan of, say, dump and run security, like the prescriptive approach to security, where you just go and say there are 400 things wrong with your project. Rather, let's figure out what are the most blasphemous things that are wrong with our project, and then we can go fix on them from there. So yeah, just some of my easy advices to startups. Also, um, don't make your security, don't confuse security for compliance theater. Again, a very mean thing to say, but like, just because you have SOC 2 does not mean you're secure. Like, don't, yeah, it's it's the bare minimum in my opinion. It's not something to be proud of. It's the bare minimum.
Absolutely, and it's so important because timing is everything as well. Like if you want to attract a good security hire, don't leave security so long when you're, especially when you're in a highly regulated industry. I've had it recently. There's a company that we're working with that is over 300 people, and they're making their first security hire. And you're like, okay, well, no, people are very scared. Security professionals are very scared to to go and take that level of role on with everything that probably needs remediated, plus the responsibility of, well, we very likely could get breached.
That's also a different skill to have, you know what I mean? Like, to break existing infrastructure and then build on top of it. I think that's a very different skill set to have, and not everybody in the industry will have it. I feel like you need a certain type of person for late stage companies to have security, first security hire. I hear you on that.
Yeah, so you've got to kind of consider these things when you're a founder or an engineering leader, whoever is going to lead security in an early stage startup. Of like, actually, how are we going to attract this talent as well? Because if we leave it too long, it's going to turn people off, and likewise if you go too early as well. So, no, it's very good advice. Well, finishing things off with a bit of a lightning round of questions, some rapid fire questions for you. But what is the biggest lesson from your journey in both content and security consistency? Like, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned to date?
Um, well, just my career in general, and I'm not just going to make it like security and content, but just my career in general. And I give this advice to every every person, every early in career person, is there's always three pillars to every job. One is work, the other is people, and the third is money. You need to figure out what's most important to you, right? For some people, maybe it's money. For some people, maybe they just want to work on quality work. For some people, it just might be like, I don't want to have a lot of politics when I get into office. You need to figure out what's good for you. If you hit 3 on 3, you've hit jackpot. You're going to be very happy. Do not leave that job. If you get 2 on 3, figure out if you want to stay there, and what makes you want to stay there, or start looking outside. If it's 1 on 3, it's your time to leave. Like, it's you've reached the ceiling of whatever you could do, and then you should leave. Um, Second thing is, be very intentional with your resume, as in where you are moving and what you're doing. Pick projects that are going to give you an edge over every other engineer out there. Um, Pick something like, for example, the industry I work in, it's not just a pure SaaS product. Not everybody can say that they have worked in the IoT space, right? So pick projects like that. Be intentional with where you're going, and don't just like pick things because it's easily available to you. See what value you are seeking out of it. And at the same time, for people who are hiring, don't just hire because you need someone to clear secret backlog for you. Please also be mindful of the other person's effort, right? If just because they're junior in their career, what are they going to learn? Um, don't hire just because you feel like you need someone to do like the low level dirty work that nobody wants to do.
That's great advice. Great advice, and I think hopefully everybody would be able to take something from that because yeah, I always think there's kind of a triangle of value when it comes to your career moves, and there's three kind of points that people want to hit on. I totally agree.
Yeah.
What's a podcast or podcast episode you'd point new listeners to? It could be one of yours. It could be anyone that you've just thought, this is great for people in security.
Uh, Podcasts and security. Um, I myself don't listen to a lot of podcasts when it comes to security because I'm someone who consumes a lot of written content. That's I have like suggestions for Substack. If
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go with that.
Substack, if you're interested in AI, there is a Substack called Artificial Intelligence Made Simple. It's by a friend of mine called Devansh. Amazing, like amazing. I have I'm not even a practitioner in AI, but I have learned so much from that podcast, from the Substack. The other Substack I like is, yeah, TLDR Sec. By It's not a Substack. It's Clippers who um, own newsletters, so it always gives me a 5 minute breakdown of everything that happened this week and everything I should be knowing of. Um, those two newsletters I definitely look forward to every week. Other than that, I prefer to get a lot of my information on Twitter, where people are constantly posting about everything, like that they're working on anything new, novel, or hacks to learn. Like in this new age of like wipe coding, what should you be doing? Like, what's a one pager that's going to help you build a good product quickly, or something like that. So Twitter is where I also get a lot of my information. Yeah, I. But if not security, and this is not a podcast, but I listen to a lot of things that Naval Ravikant has to say. Um, I like Naval Ravikant's advice on life in general. I like how he puts out his opinions on, what makes a person happy, how desires make people unhappy, and things like that. So,
Fantastic, fantastic. And here, let's get a little controversial. But what is a career myth that you would wish people would stop believing?
um, a career myth that um titles are not impressive, in my opinion. I don't know how else to sugarcoat this. Chase real work, not titles. Titles are not impressive, in my opinion. I have come across some really heavy titled people not being able to execute a single Kubernetes command. And I was like, how did you get here? So, yeah, yeah, focus on the work. Stop chasing something fancy just because the whole world thinks it's fancy. If there's no substance to it, yeah, don't do it.
Yeah. Well, hey, you're preaching to the choir. A staff engineer, a staff security engineer at one place does not equal a staff software security engineer or whatever at another company.
Place. Yeah. Yeah.
AI and people can
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
work that you've done, what's translatable, and then what value can you bring to the company or the role. And there is always experience counts for something, but I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I have stopped being impressed by titles at this point. I feel like if I can have a conversation with the person about like actual security problems is the only time I will be impressed by them. Or else, yeah, I feel like the titles mean nothing.
And then finally, to wrap things up, what is the best piece of career advice you've ever received?
That I've ever received. Um, you are not always the main character. Well, when I think about security, you are not always going to be the main character on the stage. Sometimes the things that you, for example, there will be things where developers don't have bandwidth to execute on. Um, as long as it's a risk that is, as long as it fits within the risk appetite of the company, it's fine. You don't have to take that offense that, oh my God, nobody worked on the thing that I suggested. I made a whole plan and nobody worked on it. It's just maybe there was just not enough bandwidth to work on it. And if it's something that is gonna, break or hurt the organization, you go fix it. If they don't have time for it, you go fix it. I think agency is a very important thing that startups entrust every builder or every engineer they hire with, and I think you should leverage it if you can show your impact when, say everybody's burnt out and stressed out, and you make that one commit that saves a couple dollars. Why not, right?
100%, 100%. Well, Kalyani, thank you so much for coming on, for giving us such an inspiring and thoughtful episode of the Open Source Podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please go and like and subscribe. But I'm just so grateful for you coming on and chatting with us. Probably one of the most famous people in security now. I really, I really, really appreciate you coming on, and I'm excited to do future episodes with you as well.
Sounds like a plan. I always look forward to hanging out with you, Bruce. Thank you for having me.